Have you ever wondered why she pulled away right when you gave her everything? Why your effort only pushed her further? Why no matter how good you were, she still chose someone else, someone colder, more distant, maybe even less deserving? That pain, that silent confusion that eats you alive. It isn't random, it's psychological, and unless you understand what's really happening beneath her smile, you'll keep reliving the same story with different faces. My name is Melkor Huamán, specialist in persuasion, manipulation, and dark psychology. And today, I'm going to show you what no woman will ever tell you. The invisible forces that shape attraction, desire, and control. This isn't about love. It's about power, emotional power, the kind that decides who chases and who gets chased. Most men believe attraction is about looks, money, or luck, but those are illusions. The real game takes place in the mind, in that silent battlefield where emotions decide long before logic even wakes up. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men are driven by two things, love or fear. In attraction, those two forces dance together, and the one who understands their rhythm controls the outcome." Robert Cialdini called it influence. Edward Bernays used it to move entire nations without firing a single bullet. Sun Tzu would call it psychological warfare, different names. Same principle. The one who controls emotions controls behavior. That's why some men can walk into a room, not the most handsome, not the richest, yet instantly command attention. They don't chase it. They radiate it. They project calm when others beg for validation. They create tension when others seek relief. And that tension, that emotional gravity, is what women feel before they even realize why. That isn't charm. That's dark psychology at work. The mastery of subtle signals, calibrated energy, and emotional silence. It's not manipulation in the cruel sense. It's awareness weaponized. I learned it through years of studying the mind, the hidden triggers that drive attraction, power, and influence. Paul Ekman called them micro-expressions, those flashes of truth that last less than a second but reveal everything. Robert D. Hare exposed how charm can coexist with psychopathy. And Kevin Dutton proved that those same traits, when used consciously, can create magnetic leaders. Aldous Huxley warned that the most dangerous form of control isn't oppression, it's seduction, and Philip Zimbardo showed that anyone, under the right pressure, can become dominant or submissive. The context changes everything. So what really happens when a woman desires a man? It's not about looks. It's about emotional structure, the way you hold your frame when the world tries to shake it. Confidence without arrogance, distance without coldness, presence without need. A balance so rare that it triggers a primal response, curiosity and attraction. In my channel, Invisible Power, I don't offer pickup lines or fake confidence. I offer understanding of yourself, of human nature, of the invisible language that governs attraction. Because once you see how the game works, you can never unsee it. You'll start to notice patterns in every interaction. The way people lean in, the pauses before they speak, the eyes that look too long or not long enough. You'll recognize manipulation before it begins, and influence before it's obvious. Here's the hard truth. Women don't fall for the man who treats them best. They fall for the man who makes their mind unable to rest. That's not cruelty, it's chemistry. It's the psychology of attention, tension and release. And once you learn to control those forces ethically, attraction stops being luck and becomes a skill. Dark psychology isn't about hurting others. It's about freeing yourself from the invisible strings that have controlled you for years. The fear of rejection, the addiction to approval, the obsession with being chosen. When you understand the human mind, you no longer beg for connection. You command it, and that is when power becomes peace. But let me warn you, and once you cross this line, you can't go back. You'll start seeing through masks, through words, through emotions that used to fool you. You'll realize that love, power, and control aren't opposites. They're mirrors, and whoever learns to see both sides never plays the same game again. Everything in human attraction follows a pattern. Every smile, every silence, every decision to stay or walk away, all of it comes from predictable psychological mechanisms. You may call them emotions, but I call them scripts, pre-programmed responses written long before we were even born. When you understand those scripts, you can finally stop reacting. And start directing. Let's begin with the truth most men ignore. Women are not attracted to what's real. They're attracted to what feels real. Reality doesn't seduce. Perception does. The difference between the man she forgets and the man she obsesses over lies in one thing: how her brain interprets emotional contrast, because the female mind doesn't crave comfort. It craves stimulation. It wants uncertainty, suspense, challenge, emotional friction. That's why predictable men become invisible and mysterious men become addictive. But mystery isn't silence. It's the controlled revelation of truth. You give just enough for her mind to wander, but never enough for it to rest. That's not manipulation, that's neuropsychology. Robert Greene said, "Never appear too perfect." The mysterious excites worship, while the obvious invites contempt, and neuroscience confirms it. Dopamine doesn't spike when we get what we want. It spikes when we almost get it. That's why emotional scarcity is more powerful than physical beauty. The one who controls attention controls attraction. Every interaction is a power exchange. Some give validation to gain approval. Others withhold validation to generate pursuit. Both are forms of control, but only one keeps your self-worth intact. The toxic personalities I've studied over the years, narcissists, manipulators, charmers, all use the same 5 psychological tactics. Intermittent reinforcement. They reward you unpredictably. Today affection, tomorrow silence. This keeps your brain hooked like a gambler waiting for a win. Mirroring. They reflect your values, your tone, your rhythm, until you feel they're your soulmate. Then they shift and you chase the version you lost. Projection. They accuse you of what they secretly do, forcing you into defense while they stay in control. Triangulation. They make you compete for validation, invoking another person's presence to test your emotional loyalty. Withdrawal. They disappear right when you start depending on them, making their absence louder than any words they could say. Sound familiar? That's because these tactics are not rare. They're instinctive, used by anyone who's ever wanted to feel significant at someone else's expense. Now, here's the paradox. Those same techniques, when used consciously and ethically, can turn you into a master of emotional control, not over others, but over yourself. Let me explain. When someone uses intermittent reinforcement on you, they're training your nervous system to crave their attention. But when you become aware of it, when you recognize the pattern, you take back power. You start training your own mind to detach, to enjoy connection without addiction, to stay calm when someone else withdraws, because your sense of value no longer depends on their response. That's the essence of dark psychology used ethically. Awareness without cruelty. Control without destruction. Robert Cialdini called it reciprocity management, knowing when to give and when to withhold to maintain respect and tension. Sun Tzu said, "If you know yourself and know the other, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles." And attraction is a battle, not of bodies, but of perception. Let me tell you something uncomfortable. The moment you start caring more than the other person, you lose power. Not because love is weakness, but because obsession is. Love is connection. Obsession is dependency, and dependency is psychological submission. That's why emotional self-control is the foundation of attraction. Women, consciously or not, are drawn to emotional stability, not emotional explosion. To men who can feel deeply, but stay grounded when emotions rise. That calmness signals strength at a primal level. In my sessions, I've seen it countless times. A man trying to win her back through texts, gifts, or desperation. He thinks persistence equals devotion, but to her subconscious it equals neediness, and neediness equals risk. You don't attract through pursuit. You attract through presence, through the silent confidence that says, "I want you, but I don't need you." That sentence, without ever being spoken, is pure psychological dominance. And here's a secret few ever understand. The most seductive men are not the ones who speak more, but the ones who make silence feel alive. They use space, timing, and tone as weapons. They know that emotional control is contagious. Whoever remains calm sets the emotional temperature of the interaction. So what should you do when you meet a woman who tests you, ignores you, or plays mind games? Simple. Observe. Don't react immediately. Silence isn't weakness, it's data collection. You're reading her signals, not surrendering to them. Because in psychology, the observer always holds more power than the participant. This is how the great persuaders operate. Whether in politics, business, or love, they don't fight for attention. They magnetize it. They don't chase emotions. They redirect them. They understand what Edward Bernays meant when he said, "The conscious manipulation of the habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society." Replace masses with individuals, and you'll see that the principle is the same. The goal isn't to outplay others. It's to outgrow the need to play at all. That's why the first rule of psychological strength is this: control perception, not people. Once you master your presence, your tone, your timing, others start to mirror you, their emotions adjust to yours, and what once felt like chaos becomes orchestration. In this stage, attraction stops being a game of chance. It becomes a field of strategy, and every word, every pause, every glance becomes intentional. But remember, this knowledge is power, and power always has a cost. Because once you learn how easily the human mind can be led, you'll realize how often it's already been done to you. You'll see manipulation in your past relationships, in advertisements, in politics, even in yourself, and then the real question begins: will you use it to control or to awaken? Awareness is nothing without discipline. You can understand every psychological principle in the world, but if your emotions still control you, knowledge becomes a weapon turned against yourself. This is where most men fail. They study attraction, persuasion, influence. Yet when a woman looks at them, every theory collapses. Why? Because the battlefield isn't external, it's internal. Power doesn't come from knowing what to do. It comes from staying calm while others lose. Control, that's the essence of psychological dominance, not arrogance, not aggression, but centeredness. In my years studying manipulation and emotional dynamics, I discovered something uncomfortable. You don't win by being the strongest. You win by being the most stable, because the one who stays calm dictates rhythm, and rhythm in human interaction is power. So how do you develop that kind of presence? Through repetition, through awareness, through habits that rewire your emotional system. Let's begin with the first one. 1. The pause before reaction. Every time someone provokes you, a message, a look, a rejection, your instinct is to react. Don't pause. That pause is not weakness. It's weaponization of silence. In that instant, you collect emotional data, tone, motive, intent. You train your nervous system to obey your mind, not your impulses. That's the first layer of invisible control. 2. Emotional neutrality. Detachment isn't the absence of feeling, it's the mastery of it. When you learn to feel deeply without losing your center, you become magnetic, because emotional neutrality projects confidence. A man who doesn't overreact communicates one message louder than words: I am in control of myself, therefore I can handle you. And that's the ultimate attraction signal. 3. Controlled vulnerability. People often confuse vulnerability with weakness, but real vulnerability, when chosen consciously, creates emotional gravity. You reveal just enough truth to make the connection real, but not enough to lose power. You show humanity, not dependency. Dale Carnegie wrote that people are drawn to those who make them feel significant. Controlled vulnerability does exactly that. It invites the other person to open up while you remain grounded. 4. The 3-1 rule. For every 3 times you express interest, express distance once. It resets tension and keeps attraction alive. This rhythm of push and pull is the heartbeat of all human desire. When you remove all mystery, the mind relaxes. When you bring it back, curiosity reignites. That's how dopamine bonds are maintained, through emotional unpredictability balanced by stability. 5. Mirror, then lead. When you meet someone, match their tone, rhythm, and energy for the first few minutes. It builds subconscious trust. Then, slowly lead the interaction to your pace. Calmer, slower, more deliberate. Whoever sets the tempo sets the frame. It's not about dominance. It's about guiding emotional state. Psychologically, humans crave synchronization. Once you provide it, they follow. Now understand this. These habits are not tricks. They are exercises in psychological alignment, the process of merging awareness with control. If you practice them daily, you'll start to notice something extraordinary. People will begin adjusting to your presence without you saying a word. Your silence will speak louder than their noise, and that's when attraction stops being effort and starts being gravity. But this isn't just about dating. It's about how you carry yourself in every field: business, relationships, leadership, self-mastery. Because the mind doesn't separate emotional authority, it radiates it. Once you embody control in one area, it bleeds into all others. Every morning, I practice a simple ritual, not for spirituality, but for dominance over distraction. 5 minutes of stillness, eyes open, focusing on nothing but breath and posture. No phone, no thoughts, just awareness. Why? Because your nervous system is programmable. You teach it who's in charge, your impulses or you. And once you win that internal war, external battles become predictable. You see, in dark psychology, we talk about the frame. The frame is your invisible bubble of energy, your belief system projected outward. Weak people adapt to others' frames. Powerful people hold their own. A woman senses this instantly. She feels when she enters your world versus when you're pulled into hers. The difference isn't what you say. It's the emotional temperature you set. You can't fake the frame. It's built by repetition, solitude, and silence. By learning to enjoy your own company so much that others want to be part of it. That's the paradox of attraction. You stop needing people, and people start needing you. Now let's go deeper, because what I'm about to tell you defines everything you'll ever experience in relationships. Every person you meet subconsciously asks 3 questions. Can I trust this person? 2, can I respect this person? 3, can this person affect how I feel? If the answer to all 3 is yes, attraction happens. If one fails, connection fades. So your task isn't to impress, it's to project reliability, authority, and emotional precision. You do that through micro-actions: calm eye contact, grounded tone, confident posture, and consistent boundaries. And once you've mastered that, something remarkable happens. You no longer chase chemistry, you create it. You no longer chase validation, you command it. You no longer crave peace, or you become it. This is the power of self-possession, the same power that Robert Greene calls the mastery of the self, and Kevin Dutton calls controlled psychopathy. Not madness, no, but composure so absolute that chaos bends around it. Halfway through my own journey, I realized something almost spiritual. The art of influence begins as control over others, but ends as control over self, because the ultimate dominance is not external. It's the ability to remain unmoved while the world tests you. So if you've come this far in the video, listen carefully. You're no longer just learning how to attract women. You're learning how to master perception, emotion, and identity. You're learning to wield silence, restraint, and intent like tools of power. You're learning to become the man who doesn't chase control, because he already is control. And if this resonates with you, if you want to go deeper into how the mind shapes every relationship you've ever had, remember this channel, Invisible Power, exists to awaken that dormant force within you, the one society told you to hide, the one that feels dangerous to unleash. Subscribe, not for me, but for the version of you that's waiting to be remembered. Because once you wake that version up, you'll never need to chase again. There comes a moment in every man's life when he realizes that what he called love was never love. It was attachment, projection, conditioning, a reflection of wounds disguised as affection. We chase validation, not because we want others, but because we've forgotten how to want ourselves. And that's where the real war begins, not between you and her, but between who you are and who you've been pretending to be. I've seen men lose themselves in the pursuit of being enough. They bend, shrink, and twist their nature until they become unrecognizable, all to earn approval from someone who was never meant to complete them. They forget that attraction isn't about finding wholeness in another person. It's about radiating it from within. Because once you master yourself, you stop needing to be chosen. And that's when everyone starts choosing you. That's the paradox of power. The less you seek control, The more you embody it, the less you speak. The more your presence is felt, the less you need. The more irresistible you become. Every great manipulator, every powerful persuader, every magnetic soul understood one universal truth. Control begins where emotion ends. Niccolo Machiavelli, Edward Bernays, Sun Tzu, they all wrote about control in different languages, but they spoke of the same energy, the calm authority of someone who understands human nature, and therefore never fights it. But there's another side they didn't talk about, the cost. Because once you learn to see through masks, through words, through every illusion people hide behind, you can never go back to innocence. You'll see the lies in smiles, the agendas behind kindness, the manipulation inside affection. It's like opening a door you can never close. And once you've seen how fragile truth is, you begin to wonder, can anyone love without trying to control, can you? That's the question that haunted me for years. The deeper I went into dark psychology, the more I realized that manipulation isn't evil by nature, it's survival. Everyone manipulates, parents, lovers, leaders, friends. The difference lies in intention. Do you manipulate to dominate, or to defend, to control, or to create? That's why I tell my students this. Don't reject darkness, refine it, because when you suppress it, it rules you. When you face it, it serves you. The man who learns to use his shadow consciously becomes unstoppable. He doesn't deny his hunger, his ambition, his desire for control. He understands it. He shapes it with discipline, channels it through awareness, and turns it into presence. That is power without corruption. That is persuasion without deceit. That is darkness turned into wisdom. And in that state, at the state of total self-possession, you begin to attract differently. Not from desperation, but from energy. Not from fear, but from calm magnetism. Not because you chase, but because you have become the experience others crave. That is the final stage of psychological mastery, when you no longer need to prove who you are, because your energy already declares it. So let me ask you something. What kind of power are you chasing? The power to control others? Or the power to no longer need to? Because if you're still trying to win someone's attention, you've already lost the only game that matters, the one within. But if you can walk away with silence and peace, knowing your worth doesn't shrink in someone else's absence, then you've already won. This isn't about dominance or seduction anymore. It's about liberation. The liberation of becoming untouchable, not because you're cold, but because you're whole. I'll leave you with this thought. Every human being radiates an emotional frequency. The weak emit chaos, the powerful emit calm. The awakened emit both, perfectly balanced. Which one do you think she'll feel when she looks at you? This is invisible power. I'm Melkor Huamán, and this was your initiation into the psychology they never wanted you to understand. Now the question is no longer who will you attract, but who will you become?